Hello guys and welcome to my new video. So today I decided to have a look at Discipline Priest. This is going to be my initial look at Discipline Priest playstyle. This video is going to be focused at giving some insight to new players who are wondering, should I try out this healing class? Everyone's telling me Discipline Priests are really hard. Should I actually try it? Is it fun? Is it worth it? And things like that. So hopefully it's going to provide some insight into the playstyle, into how viable they are, and maybe help you decide whether it's fun or not. So first of all, as a person who has a lot of other healing classes, most of the other healing classes, Discipline Priests are way different than anybody else out there. It's a completely different playstyle. Blizzard went in and said this is going to be crazy different from everyone else. I'll show you why. First of all, Discipline Priest healing comes in through atonements, and basically the whole concept of atonements facilitates DPS. So as a Discipline Priest, you'll want the DPS as much as possible. And why? Because if you look at atonement, Plea, which is your instant cast heal, which heals for nothing but applies atonements, Power Word Shield, which is a shielding ability, Shadow Mend, which is your direct healing spell, which is arguably the only one direct healing spell that I'll talk about later on, and Power Word Radiance, which is your AoE ability, which applies atonements as well. Also apply atonement to your target for 15 seconds. When you deal spell damage, you instantly heal all targets affected by atonements for a specific amount of the damage done. Now that specific amount is based on your master, because your master increases the healing done through atonement, so it's going to be different for you. But what does that mean? That basically means you have spells like Plea, which is an instant cast ability, which heals basically for nothing, but it applies a specific buff called atonement. So every time you're going to be dealing damage like through Smite, you're going to be healing yourself. You're going to be healing yourself for the portion of damage you dealt to the targets that have atonement. So atonement is like a mini beacon that you can place on as many targets as you want. It lasts for 15 seconds. And it's kind of like overpowered if you can use it really well. To snipe, if you're looking to snipe people, like the burst damage that Discipline Priest can do is actually insane. I would consider this priest to be one of the best burst healers in the game. But what allows you to do that is a good placement of atonements, because you can run out of mana doing that, and I'll show you why. So first of all, you have Plea, which applies atonements. Then you have Holy, Power World Radiance, which is your AoE ability. Burst of Light heals a target and 4 injured allies for within 30 yards for 250 damage, which is actually not that much at all, and applies atonements for 60% of its normal duration. So this is a kind of spell that you're going to be using, trying to apply atonements. And it's also heals for a little bit, but it's not crazy amount. But it's going to apply atonements, and then you'll be like trying to deal as much damage. So how can you deal damage? You can deal damage through your dot, Shadow Wall Pain, but most people will be using Purge of the Wicked, depending on which content you do. Purge of the Wicked works like Shadow Wall Pain. You just apply this dot, but every time you're going to penance the target, it's going to apply this dot to a secondary target. You can't really showcase it here, but it's going to deal damage. So if you have atonement on yourself, you're going to be healing and damaging. You're going to be healing the players with atonement, and you're going to be damaging the enemy. Now, one of the burst capabilities and one of the bread and butter spells for Discipline Priest is Penance. Penance is iconic spell for Discipline Priest. It's basically does a mass amount of damage or healing. Let's say, for example, if someone's losing a ton of damage, you can actually heal yourself, which is not really recommended. It's called the defensive way of playing, or you can go offensive, which means you apply atonements to as many targets, and then you actually target a mob and you damage them, and you heal the people like crazy, because Penance deals so much damage. There are tiers that are based on Penance, and Penance is like, it's your bread and butter spell. It's and it's usually recommended to use it offensively and try to attack the target. So it's so weird. It's so weird right now, because once you start your Discipline Priest, if you boost it or whatever, you go into a dungeon, you're applying atonements, and then you see everyone taking damage. Everyone's taking damage, everyone's about to die, and you're like, oh god, I need to actually select a mob. You don't have to, like, if you play any other healer, you'll be like using Wild Growth as the rest of Druid, you'll be using Beacon of Virtues, a Holy Paladin, Essence Font, as a Mistweaver on the targets that are taking damage. But as a Discipline Priest, you'll make sure atonements are on them, and you'll try and find someone to attack, which can be really weird for new players or players who have played different healing classes before, because it's like, you know, you don't look at the frames as much. You also try to focus on dealing as much damage, which is a really cool mechanic. So besides having plea, which, like I mentioned, does barely any healing, but it's an instant cast, it applies atonements. You have your single target spell, which is Shadowment single target heal, which actually can heal for quite a bit. Like, you can have 1.8 million crits, but it's very mana intensive. It's not really recommended to use it that often. It's something similar to what Regrowth would be for druids. Like, it heals for a lot, but it's quite mana intensive. So in terms of single target healing, it's quite expensive to use, but it depends on the situation. If someone's about to die, you gotta have to do it. So you have your damaging abilities. You have your Shadow Wall Pain or Purge of the Wicked. You have your Smite, which also deals damage. You can use it as your filler damage ability. You have your Penance, which is used in combination to create amazing bursts. And besides that, you have your healing cooldown. So you have the Rapture, which I feel is a really strong cooldown, purely for the fact, let me get out of combat, purely for the fact because it is the big downfall of Discipline Priest is, what if you don't have something to attack? What if you're an Imanar's transition on the bridge transition? There's no one to attack. There's no one to heal. Like, you can't use a Penance. You can't use a Shadow Wall or Purge the Wicked on anyone. You can't use a Smite on anyone. What if you're in a mythic dungeon and you're doing like Grievous and the combat exited or something like that, or Bursting, where there's no mobs to attack but Bursting is still ticking? Like, what do you do then? Like, it's kind of a tough point for Discipline Priest, but you have things like Rapture, which is for the next 12 seconds, Power Word Shield has no cooldown. So if you use it, you basically try to shield as many people as possible, because you can see on my grid, the shadowy bar shows how much absorption that player has. And in 5-man dungeons and things like that, you probably will be using like Clarity of Will, which is another spell that's going to apply a shield. So you can see that for myself, I have like half of my HP is basically shielded. So I have a tons of extra HP through the use of shields. So it's kind of recommended if you're using like Grid or whatever to have this kind of setup as well, because you need, especially for fights like Mythic Varimatches or Varimatches in general, the people who get the healing debuff, they can't be healed, they can't be shielded. That's what makes this Discipline Priest really, really powerful for that fight. So during movement, you kind of like, you know, whatever. After that, you have your cooldown. So you have your Mindbender if you spec into Mindbender. If you didn't spec into Mindbender, you will have your Shadow Fiend, which is basically, it's basically your little pet that goes in and attacks the target. He attacks the target. Why do I care about attacking the target? Because if you have atonements on people, those people are going to be healed for a portion of the damage that the Shadow Fiend does. So again, your damaging ability transferring to healing. So this can be used in combination to create a crazy burst abilities by having a tons of atonements, having atonements as many people, and then damage comes in, you put your Shadow World Fiend or a Shadow Fiend onto a boss or whatever, and they'll be healed through that damage. So again, burst potential. And then you have your Light's Wrath, which is your artifact ability, and arguably the best artifact ability that the healer's received. Discipline Priest got the best one. Light's Wrath draws upon the power of Light's Wrath, dealing certain amount of damage to the target, increased by 10% per ally affected by atonements. So this is a raid cooldown if you use it well. So you're going to apply your atonements. You're going to apply your atonements on as many people as possible, and when the damage has happened, you'll press your Light's Wrath, and basically people who are like 10% HP, whatever, and they had the atonement on them, they'll go up to full, depending on the crit that you get as well. So this is a raid cooldown on 1.5 minute cooldown, which is actually the shortest one you can get. I think Mistweaver's Revival can be quite short, like 2 minutes or whatever, depending, but this is an incredibly powerful burst healing potential tool. Like, it's really, really strong if you use it correctly. Now, how do you apply these atonements? So like I mentioned, plea, like your shield, your power shield is great for this, but also you have Radiance. Like your AoE spell, your Radiance that, you know, applies atonements to multiple targets. It costs a little bit of mana. It applies atonements for the 60% of the duration. So once you use it, it only lasts much shorter than your normal plea atonement. So you need to make sure to use it. Some people use it before the damage, and a lot of people will be using it right as the damage comes in. So you apply your atonements to plea. You know that the boss is going to do a massive AoE in about 1 second. You cast your Power of Radiance, and then you cast your Penance, and everyone's healed. There's multiple ways of doing it, but Radiance is basically a quick way to apply atonements. You can use, like, you have 2 charges of it, so you can use it like, oh, I'm behind on atonements and the damage is about to come in 10 seconds. I better spam atonements, and then I'm ready to either use like Penance, my Shadow Fiend, or Light's Wrath, and get a huge burst. So there are multiple tools to get a like crazy burst potential, probably arguably one of the biggest burst potentials in the game, if you use it correctly. Now, you notice that what I said it's a lot. When the damage is about to happen, 10 seconds before the damage about to happen, you need to know how the boss works, how the damage patterns works. When is the boss about to do a big AoE? Because you have a window where you can apply atonements, where you can apply your power with radiance to multiple targets, and then use a burst to heal them up. If the damage already happened, if everyone's already at half HP, and you're just about to apply atonements, you're just going to apply atonements, then you're just going to apply power with radiance, it's going to be too late. Everyone's going to be healed up or either dead. That's the usual thing. You need to know when the damage comes in. If you know when the damage comes in, you can play this class amazingly well. You can do a ton of DPS, you can do a ton of healing, and it can be insanely fun. Like, I mean, the whole concept in 5-mans, where you actually have to do damage in order to heal. If you play a Rest of Druid, if you play a Holy Paladin, and there's downtime, yeah, you're gonna go in and try to put in some Solar Rats. Maybe you're gonna, you know, hit the boss. Holy Shocks, use Holy Shocks offensively as a Holy Paladin. But if someone dies, especially in puck scenarios, they'll be like, what are you doing, healer? We need the, you know, you need to heal them. Stop doing DPS. That's why I really enjoyed the Discipline Priest, because you have to deal as much damage as possible. And if you deal as much damage as possible as a Discipline Priest, you'll be healing everyone else through the atonements, which is kind of like a mini beacons. You can have as many mini beacons as possible. Now, in terms of mana, it can be quite constraining. When I started playing my Discipline Priest, I was actually trying to like maintain as many atonements as possible, and I was kind of running out of mana. You need to be conservative, and you need to be offensive when you know a big burst AoE is about to happen. So knowing damage, knowing the boss is essential to playing Discipline Priest. It's essential to playing Discipline Priest, but if you know the boss, if you know the damage patterns, you can have incredible sniping potential. You can have incredible burst potential, especially with legendaries like Valence, which I kind of like and dislike in terms of that Valence plays such a big part for Discipline Priest, and if you don't have Valence, you're kind of missing out on a huge potential, because Valence is one of the best burst legendaries in the game, and Discipline Priests are all about the burst. And in combination with Valence, you can have crazy atonement healing with like Penance, applying Radiance, then Penance, Shadow Fiend, your Light's Wrath, and things like that, which is insane. In terms of movement, you have like, you have the Feather, which you can macro, and you don't have to place it anyway, it's just going to give you a speed boost. In terms of personal cooldowns, you have Fade, which if you read right now, like Fade Out removes all of your threat, which is okay, but what if the boss is about to kill you or something? Like, how does that help me? Well, it does like massive AoE. You have a artifact ability, which activating Fade reduces all damage taken by 13%, which is not great, but it's not bad. But also as a personal cooldown, you can have things like Clarity of Will, you can have things like Power Wall Shield, which is technically going to give you, it's going to increase your HP pool by quite a lot. That's what absorption shields do. So you can like, give yourself like 10 million HP or whatever, through like more than 10 million HP through these tools. And they change around in 5-mans and in raid scenarios as well. So hopefully this has provided somewhat a decent game style overview. It's not that, like, I don't know everything about Discipline Priests, but I feel Discipline Priests are really fun to play. Would I recommend this to a new player? I'm not sure. You need to know the boss. If you know the boss patterns, if you know how the boss works, you'll do great as a Discipline Priest. You'll have great fun. It's interesting class trying to find targets to actually damage in order to deal that, in order to actually heal, which is a completely new concept for any healer. And I was really shocked at the start. So I hope this was a decent overview. I would definitely recommend Discipline Priest for players. It is a fun class to play. If you're looking for a class that's completely different from everyone else, if you're kind of sick of the same kind of healing thing, like, I gotta make sure to heal the people who are always taking damage, and I don't care about dealing damage to the target. Like, it's a complete different playstyle. It's refreshing to actually play a healing class that's completely different. If you're bored of World of Warcraft healing, this is a definite step in the right direction to actually refresh your love for World of Warcraft. Let me know how you feel about Discipline Priest. Let me know how you feel about if this helped you in any way to actually make a decision about whether to play this priest or not. Let me know. And thank you for watching this guide, and I'll see you in my next video.